Ready to have your minds blown? We're diving deep into the reign of Catherine the Great, but trust me, this isn't your high school history class.
No, we're going way beyond the textbook this time.
We're uncovering the strategy, the scandals, and the surprising rise of the woman who took Russia from the backwaters to center stage in Europe.
And it's a story that's as unbelievable as it is fascinating.
I mean, imagine this. A minor German princess, not even in line for the throne, ends up ruling one of the most powerful empires the world had ever seen.
It's wild, right?
How on earth did that happen?
It's all about ambition, and Catherine had it in spades. See, she was born Sophie of Anhalt-Zerbst, pretty insignificant in the grand scheme of things.
A minor royal from a minor duchy.
Exactly, but she had this audacious dream to rule Russia.
Not just be a Russian princess, but the Empress, the one in charge.
Exactly. And here's where things get good. When she arrived in Russia for her arranged marriage to Peter III, the heir apparent.
Who, let's be honest, wasn't exactly winning any popularity contests.
To say that again.
So, our source uses the word erratic to describe him.
Oh, erratic is putting it mildly. Peter was. Well, let's just say he had a knack for alienating everyone who mattered. The court, the military, you name it. He was obsessed with Prussia, even going so far as to reverse Russian military victories in the 7 Years' War, all to benefit. You guessed it, Prussia.
Not exactly a recipe for success when you're trying to rule Russia.
Not at all, and to make matters worse, his personal life was a scandal waiting to happen. Catherine, on the other hand, seemed to understand exactly what it took to win over the Russian people.
It's like she was reading from a different playbook altogether.
Absolutely. She learned Russian, she embraced the culture, even converted to Russian Orthodoxy.
Which I'm guessing was a pretty big deal back then.
Huge. This wasn't just about fitting in, it was a calculated move to connect with the Russian people and set herself apart from her husband. And it worked like a charm.
So she's playing the long game here, building her power base and undermining her husband's at the same time. Were there any key players who helped her make this happen?
Oh, absolutely. We have to talk about the Orlov brothers, especially Grigory Orlov. They were players in the Imperial Guard.
Ah, the Imperial Guard. The most powerful military force in Russia. Whoever controlled them controlled Russia.
Precisely.
Ah.
Catherine knew she needed their loyalty. And Grigory Orlov, he was her man on the inside. Think about it. Whispers in the palace, secret meetings, the tension building as Catherine and her allies plotted their next move.
It's like something out of a movie. So she had the brains, she had the allies. But what was the final straw? What made her say, okay, it's time?
Peter's downfall really was his own doing. In 1762, after only 6 months on the throne, he'd managed to alienate pretty much everyone who mattered. Catherine, backed by Orlov and the Imperial Guard, decided to seize the moment.
And the rest, as they say, is history. It's one thing to seize power, but it's a whole other thing to actually use it.
Right. And Catherine, she wasn't content with just wearing the crown. She wanted to transform Russia.
She had a vision to drag Russia into the modern world.
She really did. And to her, that wasn't just about military strength or expanding borders. It was about ideas, education, culture.
And that's where we see her true brilliance. Our source talks about her focus on social reforms, especially in education. Like, are you ready for this? In 1764, she establishes the Smolny Institute.
The Smolny Institute for Noble Maidens.
The very first public educational institution for women in Russia.
Groundbreaking. Think about it. Across Europe at that time, women were mostly excluded from higher education. And here's Catherine saying, nope, we're doing things differently in Russia.
She understood that if Russia was going to modernize, women needed to be part of the equation.
She absolutely did.
Yeah.
An educated population, women included, was essential if Russia was going to compete with the rest of Europe.
And we're not talking about just teaching girls how to run a household. The curriculum at the Smolny Institute, it's impressive, even by today's standards.
They were learning it all. Math, science, literature, even philosophy.
These young women were being equipped to become leaders, thinkers.
And to challenge the norms of their time. Catherine's vision for the Smolny Institute, it was about empowering women through education. You have to admire that.
She was way ahead of her time. And her commitment to education wasn't limited to the elite. Our source also mentions the Moscow Foundling Hospital,
Which she founded to care for abandoned children.
providing them not just with a home, but also with an education. She was a true believer in the power of education to transform lives.
Absolutely. It all goes back to the Enlightenment, this belief in reason, progress, the power of education.
And Catherine, she saw herself as an enlightened monarch.
She did. She wanted to use her power to better Russian society.
And one way she did that was by making Russia a center of learning and culture.
She was a huge patron of the arts.
Oh, absolutely. Music, theater, architecture.
Painting. You name it, Catherine supported it.
But it wasn't just a personal interest for her, it was strategic.
Oh, she was savvy.
Yeah.
Catherine understood that to be a truly powerful nation, Russia needed more than just military might.
It needed cultural clout.
Exactly. She wanted Russia to be respected for its contributions to the arts and sciences, not just feared for its army.
It's like she was using art as a PR campaign for Russia.
Exactly. And she wasn't afraid to spend lavishly to make her vision a reality. We're talking grand theaters, palaces, and then there's her art collection.
Which, let's be real, became the foundation for one of the greatest museums in the world.
The Hermitage Museum, right in the heart of St. Petersburg. It's amazing to think that it started as Catherine's own personal collection.
But then she opened it up to the public. I mean, that says something, doesn't it?
Absolutely. She understood the power of art to inspire, to educate, to bring people together. But you can't talk about Catherine the Great without addressing the other side of her legacy.
The empire building part.
Right, because for all her talk about enlightenment and progress, Catherine was also a ruthless pragmatist when it came to expanding Russia's borders.
And she was very, very good at it. Our source talks about how Russia gained enormous amounts of territory under her rule.
Including Crimea, which had been the strategic prize for Russia for centuries.
The Crimean Peninsula, that little chunk of land jutting out into the Black Sea. It seems small, but
it was huge, strategically speaking. It gave Russia a warm water port, something they desperately needed, and it significantly increased their naval power in the Black Sea region. But Crimea was just one piece of the puzzle.
So what was the bigger picture? What was Catherine's endgame?
She was playing a high-stakes game of chess, and she was playing to win. Catherine understood that for Russia to be secure, it needed to be strong. And that meant controlling the territory around it.
So she was willing to throw her weight around.
Let's just say she wasn't afraid to flex her muscles when she needed to. And that brings us to one of the most controversial chapters of Catherine's reign, the partitions of Poland.
It's a complicated and tragic story. Basically, you had Poland, weakened by internal divisions, caught in between three powerful neighbors, Russia, Prussia, and Austria.
And Catherine, she saw an opportunity to grab some land and eliminate a potential rival in one fell swoop.
So over the course of three partitions, these powers carved up Poland between themselves.
Wiped it right off the map for over a century. It was a brutal act of aggression, and it's something that continues to cast a shadow over Catherine's legacy.
Yeah, this is where the whole enlightened monarch thing gets a little murky.
She was a woman of contradictions, that's for sure. A champion of education and the arts, but also a ruthless expander of empire.
It's almost like there were two Catherine the Greats, the reformer and the conqueror.
Exactly. And that's what makes her so fascinating, right? She was complex, brilliant, and utterly ruthless when she needed to be.
A true product of her time, but also a woman who helped shape the world we live in today. Well, there you have it. The story of Catherine the Great. A woman who defied expectations, seized power, and transformed a nation. Whether you admire her or revile her, there's no denying her impact on history.
She was one of a kind, that's for sure. And her story is a reminder that the past is never black and white. It's full of complexities and contradictions, just like the people who lived it.